Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about three tiers, and within those three tiers, three watches. And by three tiers, I'm talking about mostly financial levels. It also has to do with quality levels, but I'm not going to argue that. I'll just say it's the amount of from the most affordable to the least affordable. And we'll take a look at three in each one of these brand tiers. Now, the three brands we're going to look at are going to be Hamilton, Omega, and Patek Philippe. The reason that I selected those is all three of them use, at least to some extent, the silicone hairsprings. And that to me is important. I don't like them. That's me. That's not a statement. They're excellent for a lot of things. So rather than comparing them and hearing me complain about them the whole way through, I'll talk about their benefits when they come up and just sort of go along, because we're comparing apples to apples, as long as all three of these brands use the silicone hairsprings. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the first I'm going to talk about is the Hamilton Frogman Navy. And it's got an automatic movement, and it's called the H10 Powermatic 80. Now, some earlier time, I had talked about the Powermatic, and one of the funny things here, the first one I'm going to talk about is based on an ETA CO 7.611. And that particular model doesn't use the silicone hairspring. So that's okay with me. The Powermatic 80 I really like. They basically took down the, instead of running at 4 hertz, they ran it at 3 hertz, 21,600 semi-oscillations per hour. It's a nice number I like. And so you get an 80-hour charge out of it. And I like the looks of it. I mean, it's a nice 42 millimeter steel, $1,095. Now that's the MSRP on it, and you can always find a better deal either on your secondary market and of course on your pre-owned market. Now this next one it's interesting because this one is silicone, and they seem to be charging more for the movements with a silicone hairspring, and so I don't know. So let's take a look at why is it that they would use silicone hairsprings. The reason is pretty simple. They're non-magnetic. They like to use the term anti-magnetic, but they're really just non-magnetic. In other words, the magnetic fields that we live in, and from computers to vacuum cleaners to you name it, they have these big magnets, and once a watch becomes magnetized, it really messes it up. Believe me. This is my FP Journe chronometre Surveying, and it loves to get magnetized, but I wouldn't want to have a silicone hairspring in it. Right now it's not. You can remove magnetization. Okay, so now this one is $2,045. It's called the Hamilton Cocky Pilot Pioneer Mechanical Chronograph. And if you're a chronograph fan, which another thing I'm not, because they mess up the dial too much, but this one does a nice job. I mean, it doesn't look like a messy dial, and they use the center second for part of the chronograph movement. It's hand wound, which I absolutely love in a watch. And this one's called the H51, which has an ETA 7753 base to it. And I like the looks of that movement. This is a nice watch. I'm talking about $2,000. It's not going to break the bank. Now, this last one was a big surprise, and another one I just like a whole lot. This one has a caliber H12 in it. And the H12 is based on an ETA 2825, which in turn is based on an ETA 2824-2, but it's really a different movement. The thing about a regulator is that each of the different time elements is on a different um, axle. And this one has three axles, the one in the center for the hour, the one up toward 10 o'clock for the minutes, and then the one toward the 5 o'clock on for the seconds. And you can see those little red markers on each one of them there. And there's something about this watch that I just love this watch. So I don't think it has a silicone hairspring in it. Even though some of the other ones that are based on the same base movement, the ETA 2824-2 do have them, but not this one. And you can see over there what they did to it, because they had to have some mechanism to put in all of these different dials. And the thing about the 2825-2 is that you can put your hands all over you can have all kinds of different styles with this. Now the MSRP on this is $12.75. I found one just like it at Joma Shop for $9.75. They have other versions of the regulator. I happen to like the cinema regulator just because I like the looks of it. And I do like the movement. They have ones with the same movement and so forth by Hamilton Jazzmaster regulators for like $300 or something like that. This to me is a neat watch because it has interesting features in the movement. It's not just tell you the time, now shut up and enjoy it. I like this one. Okay, let's moving right along and take a look at Omega. Now, Omega's Speedmaster Moonwatch Professional Coaxial Master Chronometer. Okay, first of all, this one does have a silicone balance spring, and I won't say any more about it. $6,400. Hand wound. I love hand wound, so I like this one a lot. This one is a caliber 3861 with a base of Lamania 1873. Beautiful, beautiful movement. Love the looks of this movement. Overall, this watch is something, I do like it. I mean, like I said, I'm not a chronograph fan, but this one does a good job of that. I mean, I don't think the dials mess it up too much. And Moon watch, this is the one that went to the moon. Great watch. Okay, this next one is a Seamaster, and for some reason, and I'm not even sure why, I've always liked the Seamaster. Everyone talked about the Speedmaster moon watch and so forth. This one was one I always liked. And this is a diver's watch. They have a helium release valve over at about 10 o'clock, and the movement is coaxial 8900, one of the Omega movements. It has a chronometer base, not a chronograph, and they have the approval by an outfit called METAS, METAS, and it's very similar to the COSC, the Swiss certification for a chronograph, a chronometer. Okay, now what this one has, this one runs at 25,200, 3.5 hertz, and I think in part that's due because of the coaxial escapement that they have. Just a George Daniels escapement, very nice thing to have. The other thing that, notice it says 15,000 Gauss. 15,000. Now you probably know of the Rolex Milgauss, which is 1,000 Gauss in terms of resistance to a magnetic field. This one's 15,000. Well, it's got the free sprung balance with silicon. Well, the only kind of balance you can have with silicon is free sprung, because you can't put in a regulator in there because you can't change the spring at all. Something about this one I just like. I like Will Rogers used to say that he never met a man he didn't like. I think I'm afraid I may be that way with watches too much. Except, yeah, it's not. I would prefer in my collection not to have silicon. Okay, there was a Roger Smith, who is one of George Daniels, but really his only student, said that he doesn't like it either. But the reason he said you can find watches 200 and 300 years old made with traditional transitional metals that are, that's still working just fine. And so what I think he was implying, well, we don't know about silicon. That's not my beef with it. I just like to have a possibility of a regulator. Okay, moving right along. This is a Omega Globemaster. This is another one. I think the Globemaster is one of those Omegas that is ignored, and they're nice, sort of non-sport, non-chronograph, chronometer office watch. Great watch, everyday watch. It's got hours, minutes, seconds, and the date at down there at 6 o'clock. And again, this has got a silicon balance. And the good thing about a silicon balance is that you're not going to get your watch magnetized. Now, some of you, there are a lot of other ways not to have that happen. And both Rolex, H. Moser are two great examples of who develop hairsprings that are non-magnetic without using silicon. So there. Okay, now let's take a look at Patek Philippe. Now, Patek Philippe was one in 2009. There's a number of things happened back in 2009. This one does have the silicon hairspring called the Spiromax. That's the one on Patek Philippe. And this is the Aquanaut, the Patek Philippe 5167/1A. Now, apparently, Patek Philippe got rid of the Nautilus that for this size and so forth, and the one they have now is a smaller one primarily for women on the Nautilus, but it uses the same movement that this one does, and so anyway, it's again, you have, like I said, it uses a Gyromax balance with a Spiromax. $26,610. Now, believe it or not, that's a pretty good deal for Patek Philippe these days. And sports watch, something about the Aquanaut, another one of those I like. When I was thinking about getting a Nautilus, I was considering between a Nautilus and an Aquanaut, and I liked them both, but ended up getting an Easy Diver instead, or actually I got a overseas initially. Okay, now this is one that I absolutely love. I don't believe this is one of the few watches I don't think they put a silicon hairspring in. And I could be wrong, but they don't mention it. They don't, because in all of the other ones, they mention the Spiromax hairspring, which is your silicon hairspring. The Patek Philippe Calatrava, years ago I had one. I love my Calatrava. The trouble was mine's a little older, and it was smaller. That thing kept beautiful time, fabulous watch. Always have loved these watches. Now this particular model, they've got a whole bunch of different ones, and I think this is the only one that I consider to be really a true Calatrava. It's hand wound. You've got the time only, which I think is important. Adding the second hand is sort of up it a little, but that's okay. And here's the big thing about it. It has two barrels, but they're arranged in parallel, which will balance out the torque better and give you better time. And that, I think, is very important. My Chronomet Cervane also has a double barrel in parallel. You don't find too many of them. Most of them you're going to find are set up in serial to give you a longer power reserve. These are set up in parallel, so they're both working at the same time to give you more even torque. This I really like. I mean, and it has the hobnail or the Clos de Paris, I don't know, little bumps around it. I like this watch. Okay, now this final one is one of their grand complications. And It's manually wound. Again, what I like a lot. It does have the silicone balance spring and the Pulsomax silicone lever and escape wheel. But this one this is a chronograph. It has a chronograph function in it. And it has a central chronograph hand. It's got the central 1/10 of a second hand. This was new for this grand complication coming from Patek Philippe. They got it set up. Now, this is new for 2022, and they have a call for price on it. And I think what's been going on with when you have a lot of the call for price, this particular time in history, there's been a lot of inflation. And so, people are worried, well, if they set a price on it, the price will go up in terms of the inflation will go up to the point where that price wasn't too good. Either that or they don't want to mess with people, once they're talking, stuff that's north of $40,000, $50,000 or even $100,000, it's called for the price on that one. Platinum 41 millimeters. Now, this is another thing that I'm not crazy about, but you probably get really fantastic accuracy with it, is 36,000 semi-oscillations per hour. We still call it VP8, but that's what it really is. And to me, that's sort of like, you're beating a rented mule. You're really working out your stuff. I don't like it for that reason. I like the much lower ones. You look at the Wooten Lannon, what's his name? Some of the all of the top ones. They're down at not 4 hertz, not 3 hertz, but 2.5 hertz, 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour. And I know Zenith is one that's been using the faster movements and for the purposes of accuracy. This thing's got silicon, so you're not going to get the magnetization and some other features about it that are very positive. But I don't know, sort of like you're beating a rented mule by putting things that fast. But that's my own opinion. Doesn't mean anything other than what it is. Okay, so I'm very interested in hearing your opinions and your views on this. And comment section, let me know. This is an opportunity to subscribe if you like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.